We are 1 week away from the first official Duke men's basketball practice of the season. That means it's time for another Mailbag Monday. What questions do you have right now about Duke basketball? Let's dive into it here on today's show.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man. The Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson, and it's so great to have you here with us on this Monday, September 18th, 2023. We are officially 1 week away from the start of the Duke men's basketball season, so we've got another Mailbag Monday installment of the program, and my good friend Kevin Connelly, the site expert from Durham, will help me dive through your questions that we'll discuss here on today's show. Really excited. Duke football able to pick up a win over Northwestern this past weekend. We'll talk about that game in more detail coming up on tomorrow's show, but we're focusing on basketball here today and really excited to do that. If you haven't done so already, Locked On Blue Devils is your daily one-stop shop for all things Duke athletics. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch the show daily. Subscribe to our podcast feed. Leave us a 5-star rating and review, as your support means so much to us here at Locked On Blue Devils. So without further ado, let me bring on my friend, the aforementioned Kevin Connelly, who joins us here on the show. And Kevin, look at this. Here we are now 1 week away from the first men's basketball practice, which means the season is right around the corner.
Yeah, we knew it was going to come quickly. And now we're really getting the fun stuff here. Time for speculation is going to be over soon. We can finally watch some real hoops.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for some real hoops. I'm ready to have the roster kind of in place and organized. And we know what that looks like now. We know that Kyle Filipowski and Mark Mitchell, according to Coach John Shire today, now cleared for all basketball activities, which is the biggest win within itself. It's amazing to have all those players returning from last year's squad. It's even better, Kevin, when they're healthy and able to compete right out of the gates.
Yeah, it was a little interesting that news came out from John Rothstein. It feels like we've kind of known that now for a good portion of definitely over a month, close to 6 weeks. I mean, Mark Mitchell was participating, I think it was the end of July, in the Nike Academy 5-on-5 camp. So he's been clear for basketball activities for a while, and feels like Kyle Filipowski has as well in other podcasts and shows that John Shire has been on this offseason. He's kind of just talked about how Flip is ready to go. If he had to play a basketball game tomorrow, he could be able to. This is going back to some shows he was on in August. He just said the biggest thing right now is ramping him up to getting him into 5-on-5 action. So certainly, I guess, good reaffirmation that both players are healthy and ready to go. But the news shouldn't come as much as of a surprise to Duke fans, maybe than other fans around the country.
Well, let's get right after it. Let's look at some of these questions that we've got in the mailbag today. You could send questions to us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils, or we've collected several via email, lockedonbluedevils@gmail.com. Any question that you want answered, send it our way, and we'll take care of that for you here on a Mailbag Monday edition of the show. So first question coming in today, who is a bench player that you're really excited to see this season, Kevin? So, of course, here we are speculating who's going to be a starter, who's going to be coming off a bench, but who are you excited to see play this season?
Yeah, so again, bench player. So I wrote a piece probably about a month ago as well, predicting who I think the starting five is going to be and how the depth chart is going to shake out. So I'm going to go answer this question based on the assumption the starting five is Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, Jared McCain, Mark Mitchell, and Kyle Filipowski. So I'm assuming those five players are going to be your starters on opening night. And then that lends my answer to say freshman TJ Power. I'm really excited to see him play. I think there was a lot of buzz and speculation and intrigue around him, a player that really shot up the recruiting rankings last summer. He was out in the EYBL, had a really good productive senior season of high school. And he's kind of that interesting piece because it feels like what you're hoping to get out of a McCain and Foster. Sean Stewart is a little bit of a question mark too, but I just think a lot of people are really hyping up TJ Power, and he could be one of those X factors of, all right, if he can step outside and shoot, he certainly has the size to play down low. He could be that versatile wing that Duke is really looking forward to having this season with the departure of Dariq Whitehead and then obviously down low with Derek Lively. So I'm really excited to see what TJ Power can bring to this team in his freshman year.
Yeah, who is a bench player you're excited to see? This question is a good one. I'm excited to see TJ Power, what he's going to be able to contribute. As you just mentioned, what does Caleb Foster bring to a Duke team like this? Give me Jaden Schutt, though. I talked about him all season last year. I'm really hopeful he's got a little bit of a larger role. I think in terms of shooting, he's going to be able to do that. And you look at what he was able to do this offseason. He's getting a lot of praise from the coaching staff and his teammates for the work that he's put in. A lot of people in his situation would have transferred had they not been given sort of those playing time opportunities. So I know that doesn't even surprise you either, Kevin, because you know how much I adore Jaden Schutt and what he's able to do on the basketball court. So, yeah, that's more of a personal answer for me. But, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, you're the captain of the Jaden Schutt hype train, and you're sticking with it, and you're not jumping off until the wheels come off. So
I love that.
Yeah, you hope for a Duke team that is hoping to have a little bit more shooting production, maybe with an entire offseason on campus for Jaden Schutt, that he's able to bulk up, get a little bit quicker, get a little bit faster, and hopefully in your case, we'll get more playing time as a result.
Let's go ahead and we'll take our first time out here on today's show. When we come back, we continue to dive into some of your questions here on this episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Athletic Brewing. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good, full with flavor and well-crafted. Their brews are great tasting, award-winning, and beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beers, including IPAs, Goldens, sours, and more, constantly releasing limited edition experimental styles to add to their variety. You take a look at this, they're fit for all times, so you could drink them anytime, anywhere, and make any activity more enjoyable, like watching a big game, tackling work, or working out. No hangovers ever. You can find Athletic in store. Again, Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you, or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, to get 15% off your first online order. Near beer exclusions and conditions apply. Locked On is your code at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson alongside my pal Kevin Connelly, who is the site expert for Ball Durham. Let's keep it moving, Kevin. Our next question comes in via email once more. How many Duke basketball games does it take for you to get a good feel about where the team stands? I think this answer kind of varies year by year, obviously, but it's a fair question for Duke fans to want to know. I mean, here we are a week away from practice starting. We're not going to know everything there is to know about this Duke team after the first game, but how many games do you think it is?
Well, again, that's a really good question. And like you said, the answer varies. Now, this year, I think it could be a little bit earlier in the season, given the 4 big-time non-conference games they're playing against Michigan State, against Arizona, Baylor, and obviously the road game against Arkansas. Now, if you don't have as big or as loaded, I should say, of a non-conference schedule, it might take you until after the new year to really get a feel for how this team is going to be, given you're going to play better teams in ACC play. Maybe you have some injuries. So I think the answer to this varies a lot, but I think typically around that January 1st time period, once you're about to really jump into ACC play, that's when you really have a good feel for what this team is going to do. Because remember, the last marquee non-conference game for Duke this year is December 20th in Madison Square Garden against Baylor. By then, pending the team stays healthy throughout the non-conference, you should have a really good idea of what this team is going to look like in the regular season.
All right, next question here in our mailbag that we're tackling today. What's the draft stock ceiling for Kyle Filipowski, one of the most surprising guys to return to the college game across the entire country? Duke fans, we are absolutely ecstatic that he's coming back for another year. A lot of people thought he could have been a first-round pick a season ago. The ceiling for him, however, when you look at that, I think he could crack into the top 10, Kevin, if he puts together another really impressive season and if he continues to improve on those shooting percentage numbers.
Yeah, I was going to go in that area too. I would say like top 7 to top 10, I think his ceiling would be. Obviously, like you said, a major part of that is the shooting numbers, specifically 3-point shooting. Because if you look at it, had he come out this past offseason, he probably would have been a mid first round pick. So that's kind of what you're basing it off of. And again, he had a really good freshman season. And with the hip surgery, he keeps saying that he's going to be able to move better and play better defense and get in stances more. So you hope that helps his speed and agility. That'll NBA teams will really say, oh man, okay, this hip injury was really holding this guy back physically. Now he looks like a completely different player and completely different athlete as a sophomore. And then if those 3-point shooting numbers also rise as well, then you're really going to see Kyle Filipowski shoot up draft boards. And we haven't really even mentioned his defense because he's going to be playing a lot of
That's
center.
where I was going. Yeah.
He's going to be playing a lot of center this year. And we all know the NBA game. You need to have mobile centers. You need to have centers that can step outside and shoot the three. So if Filipowski, a lot of it depends on the shooting. A lot of it depends on the health of his hip. And if it really was able to make him faster, jump higher, make him more agile. So if everything comes together in the perfect storm for him this year, I think he'll definitely be a lottery pick and potentially even push the top 10, top 7. And if he really has a good season, because I really haven't jumped into this upcoming NBA draft as much, maybe top 5.
So here we are. We're talking about Kyle Filipowski and his draft stock, taking a look at what this next year will bring. The hip surgery, I think, is so key to see what it's going to do for his athleticism. As you're mentioning, as a near 7-foot player, that's what teams are going to want to look at. Yes, you might be able to shoot from the outside, but are you a liability for us on the defensive end of the floor? Because historically, we've seen that has absolutely hurt in a negative way a lot of people's draft stock and that sort of thing. I think one thing is for certain, though, with Filipowski, that is helpful, Kevin, in that when you look at this construction of this year's Duke basketball team, I feel really confident that Flip is still going to get his. Right? Mm-hmm. From a numbers perspective, which does translate, that will help a Duke team where some of the other players, it might be a little bit harder to forecast what their counting stats may look like. I don't think that's as big of an issue for Kyle Filipowski. I think he's going to be featured. I think he's going to rebound well. I think he's going to score a lot of points. And I think that helps.
Yeah, it certainly helps. Again, his numbers should be the same where he averages close to a double-double, assuming that he stays healthy this season. And yeah, that obviously helps. But again, like those numbers we're talking about, it's going to be the numbers that you really can't measure in a box score of on the defensive side, and then the 3-point shooting. But yeah, you can forecast what Filipowski is going to do on the floor a lot better than say a Jeremy Roach or a Tyrese Proctor or Mark Mitchell, 4 other players that are hoping to have their names called this upcoming June as well.
Good question there. Again, a Locked On Blue Devils mailbag question sent to us. We keep it moving. I love this one. Next question coming in. What's more important for Duke basketball in the 2023-2024 season? Is it good wing play or good bigs?
That's a really good question. And you want to kind of break it down by the roster, right? So it's a guard-heavy team. Duke right now is a guard-heavy team, at least on paper. We think they're going to start 3 guards in Jeremy Roach, Tyrese Proctor, and Jared McCain. Now, again, they all project as guards. They don't really project as wings. You could say Mark Mitchell is a wing. He's probably going to play a lot of power forward, his more natural position. And then Kyle Filipowski is going to be your center. So it's a tough one to answer, but I think I'm going to have to go bigs because you kind of know what you're going to get out of Mark Mitchell. Now, yes, you hope he takes the next step offensively, and people are expecting him to do that and shoot more and shoot better. And he's one of the best defensive players in the country. But how many other wings are you going to have behind him that you can really trust? We talked about TJ Power earlier in the show. Sean Stewart. What is Sean Stewart going to bring to this team in his freshman season? I think that's a big question that has to be answered. However, you look at the bigs, and what's the biggest subtraction from this year's team than last year's team? Derek Lively. When you ran out those 2 centers on the floor, and it would happen consistently with Kyle Filipowski and Derek Lively, it was nearly impossible to score on Duke down low. Now with only Filipowski, and people obviously value the defense of Lively more than Filipowski, people are going to try to attack him early, and they want to attack him and see if can he defend in the post, and more importantly, can he defend without fouling? Because if he starts racking up fouls, he comes out of the game, then who comes behind him? Ryan Young, an inexperienced Christian Reeves. There's a lot of questions at center for Duke if Kyle Filipowski really can't handle playing defensively at the 5 position.
Here we are. You're convincing me again. I've been swayed, Kevin. I think good bigs probably is the right answer for this one, given the look and roster construction, right? For each and every year, like we mentioned, it may take you a little bit more time to know how many games until you get a true feel for a Duke basketball team. I think it also kind of varies based on roster construction. And curious what people watching our show believe. Answer the questions down below. You'll see them in our YouTube description, how you feel we should best answer these Mailbag Monday editions. Appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to comment down below. So that question was, what's more important for Duke basketball this year? Is it good wing play or good bigs? All right.
Remember during the offseason, we were talking about how Duke needed to add another big, right?
Absolutely.
That was the big thing in the transfer portal. It was, are they going to add another big? It feels like they need to add another big. We weren't talking about adding another wing. We were talking about adding a big to complement Filipowski and Ryan Young, because obviously we saw last year what his limitations are as well, offensively and defensively. So that was the big question of the offseason, was who are they going to target out of the transfer portal for a big? They were interested in a couple of guys, nothing really ever formulated. And then now Kyle Filipowski is this team's lone true center on the roster.
So we'll make it work. We'll see how the bigs perform this upcoming season. And we've got a couple of more questions that we will tackle after our final time out here today on this episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils is brought to you by our friends at Betterhelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, make sure you give Betterhelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Get a break from your thoughts with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today to get 15% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, help, HELP.com/lockedoncollege. BetterHelp, a sponsor here for Locked On Blue Devils. Final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson alongside my pal Kevin Connelly, the site expert for Ball Durham. Give me a plug for your work once again, Kevin. What can we find at balldurham.com?
You can find anything you want on Duke athletics, recruiting, current Blue Devils, and obviously in the pros as well. Give us a follow on Twitter at ball_Durham, and then you could read us at balldurham.com. Again, balldurham.com, and on Twitter at ball_Durham. So it'll be worth your time. I promise that. So come give us a read and give us a follow as well.
And I endorse it all the time. Yeah, make sure you go check out Kevin and his great team there. So it's Mailbag Monday. It's our Duke basketball edition as we're a week away from practice starting with the Duke team. Next question, which player will progress the most throughout the season? I kind of love this. We're forecasting. So the player where they're at day one to the end of the season, who do you think that is?
That's another really good question, and it's tough to answer. I don't want to go back with TJ Power because I gave him as an answer to another question. I'm gonna say Sean Stewart. I think Sean Stewart is really
good. My answers, Kevin. Yeah.
I think Sean Stewart is really going to progress this year. Again, really don't know a lot about him. A little bit undersized to play center. Fits as a good power forward, at least on paper. Now, obviously, that can change once you get on the court. And if he projects well at the center position, he's going to get some minutes there because we just highlighted how there's not that much depth behind Kyle Filipowski. But I think where he starts on opening night to compare to where he finishes whenever the NCAA tournament comes to an end, the season ends, I think it's going to be a massive jump. And I think he's going to be primed to absolutely seize the potential starting power forward position going into the 2024-2025 season.
I don't even want to try and make the case for someone else, right? I just want to add to it for Sean Stewart to be the answer to this. Which player will progress the most throughout the season? I'll leave that task to one of our loyal listeners if they want to kind of tell us what would be the case for someone else to be the answer for who's progressing the most. Because I think you're right. When you look at Sean Stewart, he's got a role coming into this Duke team. When you look at some recruits, I think some of the guards that we've gotten have gotten a little bit more buzz and publicity than Sean Stewart has. And for him to come in right away, it's too tough to put these expectations on him to be Derek Lively or a big-time player that it almost feels as though he's replacing. Totally different players, but when Lively leaves and you know Stewart's going to get some minutes down there, I think you're thinking, okay, this could be kind of a replacement type player. It will take a little bit to get adjusted to the college game, but I do believe by season's end, we're going to be saying, oh my gosh, like we already love Sean Stewart. He's a part of the brotherhood. We're really going to love him with some of the performances I think he's going to be able to put together this season. And the majority of those great performances, I would bet, take place later in the season when he does get more comfortable and has a better sense for the speed of the game, his role within this team, and so much more.
Now, I don't think the jump is necessarily going to be as drastic than what we saw from Tyrese Proctor this past season.
Right.
But I think you could look at a similar trajectory where Tyrese Proctor started off slow, found his footing, they moved him to primary point guard, and now entering a sophomore season, people are saying this guy has the potential to be an All-American candidate and first-round pick in June. I think Sean Stewart, from his freshman to his sophomore season, could be on a similar trajectory. And remember, this is a kid grew up as a Duke fan. He wants more than anything to win here and be successful here. He's family friends with Grant Hill. So I think it means a lot for Sean Stewart to be a successful Duke basketball player, and he's going to put the work in to make sure that happens.
Yeah, we're excited to see that happen. That's going to be awesome. So one question left here to go on this Mailbag Monday. It's a simple one. We're a week away from practice starting. Someone asked, what's your favorite thing about Countdown to Craziness? And here we are now a few weeks away from that.
My favorite thing is the game. I'm sorry. I know people like the introductions and the dance moves and the songs or whatever, but
that's me. I'm the intros and dance moves guy.
I love the game. They only play a half, and my reason for that is because, all right, yes, it's great that we get this footage in the off season of scrimmages and practices and whatever, but let's be honest, like, it's edited. Like, it's not the full uninterrupted jump down to craziness. It's televised. There's no editing there. It's what you see is what you get. And it's the first chance, at least for us, to actually get some type of understanding of what player X is going to be and what player Y is going to be and how the shooting looks and how the defense looks. Now, obviously, we're not going to try to overreact to a 20-minute inter-squad scrimmage. That's really just supposed to hype up the season and build to the first exhibition game and then the season opener on November 7th. But it's just great to see that for that 20 minutes of the guys just playing, and it's not edited. What you're watching is actually what you're getting.
It's going to be amazing. I'm excited for it. I definitely love the intros. I love the personalities. I think that's the one opportunity we kind of get to see them, not necessarily in a game type setting, but just in a crowd and an environment like that. We see kind of the egos and whatnot come to the forefront, which I love. I love that. And I think that's why we are able to relate so much to some of these Duke basketball players, because they clearly care so much about playing for Duke and that sort of thing. So there we go, Kevin. Tackled another installment of Mailbag here on the podcast. Once again, man, just pretty exciting that we're now 1 week away from practice starting, right?
Yeah, it's going to come quick, and Countdown to Craziness, month away, October 20th. So should be exciting month upcoming for the Duke basketball team.
One more plug, Kevin. Give us the social media handles. Where can we find all of your work?
So on Twitter, I guess I should say X. I keep calling it Twitter. You can find us at ball_Durham, and then online, balldurham.com, where you can read us daily. Come check us out. It'll be worth your time.
Appreciate the time as always, Kevin. Look forward to talking to you again soon, okay?
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Kevin Connelly joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. That's going to do it for our show today. We'll continue to break down Duke football's win over Northwestern this past weekend. More basketball conversations and more in the days and weeks to come. Make sure you respond to our questions that we answered here today in this mailbag installment of Locked On Blue Devils. Do that by answering down in the YouTube comment section below. Follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. I'm on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.